school safety coordinator. I have been following Shasberry's SRO, the safety officer conversation, and the conversations regarding budgets and decision makings around the contracts for that. And obviously that's not this board. This board is a makeup of Mount Anthony, Arlington, and the elementary school districts now. And one of the things that I was reflecting on is, and correct me if I'm wrong, in 2017, I believe we hired a SVSU school safety coordinator, right? And at that point, he rolled out a plan for Mount Anthony, and I'm sure there may be a plan for the elementary school districts. I'm not sure. But one of the things that I was reflecting on was that the conversations in Shasberry were around budget dollars and like debates around whether SROs are relevant or whether we should have in-house safety. And I think given that we're like safety is our #1 priority as districts, I think that conversation and accountability should be held in the group district, especially since we have an employee through this district and then push through our the expenses can follow in the various districts, like, if Mount Anthony, but the supervision and the discussions around how we're going to employ safe environments for our students, I feel should be at this table because you're making decisions for the whole organization. If we have one person supervising all of these various components, it feels very fractured to me. So that's my public comment.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing.
So we can take, coach me through this here just because I'm relatively new and we haven't had a lot of meetings with public comment just yet, but I think we can take this advisement
Correct.
and add it to a future agenda
Correct.
so that we can talk more freely as a board about it. Yes? Okay, so we'll just move forward that way, and I definitely would like to dig into that more. Moving on to item number 2 on the agenda would be the treasurer's report. Need a motion to accept the treasurer's report. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Leon, seconded by Susan. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Great. Moving into item 3 on the agenda, operations. We have a construction management contract, and I know we have over here to talk about that.
Hi. Hey, how are you? Hello there. So through the ESSER legislation through the federal government, the SVSU put together, Renee Buffard's here, and Laura put together concept designs or conceptual projects. And we have gone through procurement for a construction manager to run all those. We tried bidding them out as a whole, and then we tried bidding them out all individually, and came up with nada. So we've gone to the MAU board and the SVSU ESD and said, hey, is it okay to make a motion that we, as the SVSU, can administer those contracts on behalf of MAU and SVSU ESD. They both voted on it. So Renee put together legislation for a recommendation to move forward to execute the contract with Naylor and Breen. They're as construction managers for air conditioning at the middle school, ventilation at the high school, and the cafeteria, auditorium, gymnasium, East Campus, and all of our elementary schools.
Can you explain exactly how that's going to work? That means that Naylor and Breen will make decisions about contractors for particular parts of this.
So what's great is so I'm going to answer your question in a really long-winded way. Before any construction goes on, we have a team of consultants. We have a project manager, an architect, and a mechanical design team, Du Bois and King, who we have a weekly meeting, and the SVSU informs the engineers as to what pieces and parts we want as part of our HVAC systems. They're putting that into construction documents, and then Naylor and Breen takes those and they'll bid out individually. So our contract is with Naylor and Breen. The pieces and parts and widgets that we want are in the packages. And then, yes, they would bid out to the contractors and make decisions with us in concert.
Are they subject to the same sorts of bid requirements that the districts are required?
Yep, they don't have to go through procurement because we've already done the procurement piece. But we do have to,
And what's the procurement piece? What do you mean by that specifically?
so the state of Vermont, when we got the federal funds for construction, we had to go through a process of either inviting people or inviting companies to bid or publicly advertising or both. And we have done both of those things for all of these projects.
Right.
And so as part of that process, we publicly advertised and individually invited for a large project to say, hey, here are all our HVAC projects. We didn't get any bids.
Right.
We went through and broke them up. Luckily, we got one bid for Woodford, so that ventilation project is almost complete. Here in the next month, hopefully it'll be done. And then the state, we also have a weekly construction meeting with the state of Vermont to make sure we're going through the right processes. And so they advised, hey, since you haven't gotten any interested contractors through these two methods, can you put out pre-qualifications for construction managers based on the construction market right now?
Yeah, okay. So, but won't Naylor and Breen have to go through that procurement process? They just won't have to do it in the same public way or what?
So they, can you tell me more?
Well, they're going to have to accept bids too, right? They're going to have to advertise for bids.
Yep. So that'll all be public. The same bid bond requirements exist. The same builder's risk
Yeah,
applies, and
I
Davis.
can understand that, but
Yeah.
what does this, I don't exactly understand why this makes sense. I mean, they're going to have the same problems getting contractors, aren't they?
Well, that's kind of why, let me back up. So yes, the construction market right now is really complicated. I'm sorry, I should keep standing up here. I don't want to have my back to Renee. I just, the construction,
More visible now.
there you go, there.
That is great.
The construction market right now, because of COVID and labor and a number of different factors, lead times on mechanical equipment are very long. And there's a shortage of labor, of tradesmen. So contractors have been very reluctant to provide bids for hard bids to say, hey, we can get the project done with this price, with this schedule and these constraints, like working around a school while it's occupied, right?
Okay.
So because we're going with a construction management arrangement, that is going to be a little more fluid, and we'll have a little more ability to work as a team with both the project management, which would be us, right, the SVSU, the construction administrator, and then the contractor to say, okay, like before you say, hey, we can do this, let's pick a rooftop unit that we can get in 20 weeks, not 40 weeks. Let's work together to come up with a submittal so that if a Ford and a Chevy are comparable, but I can get it installed earlier, then we can have more of those collaborative conversations rather than a contractor putting everything on paper and saying, here, this is what you get.
Does our going this route give us more time
Nope.
No.
Nope. So each one of the processes that that I described before, like sending out as a whole, that was a 60-day process. And then sending them out individually was a 60-day process. And then going through the process of procuring a construction manager and that sole source waiver was a 60-day process. So if we were to do something else, that would be another 60-day process.
So this,
Sure.
so I think my problem, I just want to understand what advantage this gives us, or maybe it doesn't give us an advantage, but it gives us a chance to meeting deadlines on spending money.
Yeah,
I was gonna answer that for you.
end of September 2020.
Well, I'll let Holly answer it. What about that?
Well, yeah, that was my, go ahead, you.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you. So all the money, the last check, and I know she's looking at me, so don't, but the last check has to be cut before the end of September 2024. So that
Yeah,
means,
that's a real short deadline.
yeah, commissioning all needs to be done, punch list all needs to be done, payments, I need all the warranties by then. So approaching this in more of a collaborative way with vendors that we know have the bond capacity, have the labor capacity, and have the skills to be able to
Right.
work together to
This
solve.
doesn't change specs or the goals of the project and the specifications for meeting it, but
Correct.
it allows some flexibility in choosing vendors.
Some flexibility on
Equipment.
managing the construction in different ways so that we can be successful and deliver a project in time with all the constraints that comes with this money.
So, I'll try to summarize it,
No, you go ahead.
to make it, what I'm getting, the project for a Nail and Bringer manager was to leverage the efforts on a bigger scale than to be able to the contractors are more likely to come to them and work more so than they are just individually. So we thought that, adding a big name company in will be able to get those things acquired by the people that wouldn't come to us individually.
Correct.
And so the process is not going to change. All the things that's got to happen to the ones that are going to be bidding, they still got to do it and legally note it and so forth. We're just using an umbrella out here with a bigger stick and the honey
It's a
comb
million,
or whatever they
million
throw
and
them all
change
in. Yeah.
umbrella. It's an addition to the overhead of the project of $1 million plus.
Yep. And sorry, Ray, just to add another layer to that is that we're kind of in a contractor desert. There's not a lot
Yeah.
of huge contractors like there in
Could
Burlington.
we
or-
not have done this before without going to the previous steps? I'm just curious.
We could have.
We could have the
Yeah.
process by which we get approval from the state, I think, would have been more laborious, because we eliminated, like, this is the easiest way to do it, and then this is the second easiest way to do it. And now this is the most complicated possible way to do it, and so we've gone through that process. So that the state we've been coordinating with the state to make sure that we're doing all this correctly, and I think had we gone right to this approach, there would have been more questions from the agency that.
Can I add something too? So all we're asking this board to do is actually be the conduit to
Yeah, no, that's
the
fine.
party to the contract, because both the elementary district and Mount Anthony have approved this. But it's gonna be easier for Naylor and Breen to manage one contract than to try to break it into two. And technically, because both those school districts own those properties, they have to be party. But working as how we have, and they've already done this, running it up to the SU, allow it to be one contract and just manage
Yeah.
more seamlessly.
Yeah, and yes, that. And then, the other piece is that Naylor and Breen being one entity and us not having large contractors locally, they can say, okay, you have this amount of labor, like, this mechanical contractor, you can cover these two schools and they can coordinate with another mechanical
Split it
contractor.
up differently.
And then they can
They
engage.
can treat it as one whole project and parcel things out, because we don't
Correct.
have enough contractors to do all this.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'm fine with that. I just, and I appreciate the time constraints, and I just wanted an explanation of why it was beneficial and why, why we couldn't just do it from the get-go.
Oh, yeah.
We already knew we had this problem, basically.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And no, come on, Ray. Give me more questions. I'm not talking about, there's not gonna be a heat recovery wheel because the high school cafeteria is occupied less than 3,000 hours a
Okay,
year.
I don't want to hear about all the contraction of what the quality, because we can't get there
Yeah.
in time.
It was already
It was already- All
Thank
right,
you.
so it looks like you've made a recommendation as part of the packet. And so what we're looking for is a motion to execute the construction management with Naylor and Green Builders in the amount of $1,188,160 on behalf of the MAU Mount Anthony Union High School District, the Southwest Vermont Elementary District entities. The construction management contract will oversee and facilitate HVAC optimization projects having a guaranteed maximum price of $10.5 million, all of which will be funded by ARP American, which is the American Rescue Plan, ESSER funds through the SVSU. The SVSU administration will manage the project's construction and accounting on the school district's behalf.
So move.
I'll second it, but I have one further question. That the 1.1 million for Naylor and Breen is in that 10 million,
No, it's an addition.
or it's separate?
It's an addition and I hate to say this because we are gonna spend every penny of this money. In the event that we are not able to, which
Yeah.
will happen over my dead body.
I hope not.
That percentage, what we pay them would go down, right? If we can only figure out how to spend $8 million, that percentage.
Oh, I see. So it's
It's
tied
a
to the
percentage
10.5.
of the total? Okay. Yeah, well, let's hope the best of all possible worlds.
Yeah.
So I think we had a motion by Leon, second by Ray.
Second by me.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And are there any abstentions?
How I did work.
You guys made me so happy. Thank you very much. And I'm always happy to talk about mechanical systems.
Moving on to item 4 on the agenda, which is policies. We have 3 to adopt this evening. First one is number 5008, students who are homeless. We'll address these one at a time.
So move.
Do we have a second? Any discussion?
I do have one comment. And Leon, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm looking at you, but isn't homeless not a politically correct word anymore? Isn't it unhoused or something?
I was just gonna,
Go ahead, Leon, dude.
I was gonna let you know this is a required
Yes,
policy.
go ahead.
This is a requirement.
It is attached to a law, McKinney-Vento, so the language comes
Yeah.
right
Comes from-
from, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so,
Sorry.
no, I thought we answered that at Mount Anthony too, I thought.
Any further discussion? Okay, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
I,
Those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, second policy is number 2 on on item 4 of the agenda, which is number 5050, discipline of pupils, suspension and expulsion of pupils, and that is one that needs to be adopted.
So move.
second.
We have a motion by Leon, a second by Susan. Any discussion?
So is this a required policy from the state? Legally required in this form?
You have to talk to that page if you. Well, I don't know that if
Actually, it doesn't have that.
if it's not on the paper as being required under the number, then It's not one of those, unless we got no issue. We're trying to put it there, document it that way, and say right up in the right-hand corner under the number that is required.
Yep. Okay, let me see here.
So I think this,
How does it say that?
well, it would be in a corner like this, right there. Yeah, and then like this one says required.
Right, it doesn't say that.
So that would answer your
Yeah,
question.
okay.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further discussion? So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have, one opposed with Ray, and any abstentions? Okay, moving on to item 3, or number 3 under item 4 on the agenda, which is policy number 5085, search and seizure, which needs to be adopted as well.
So move.
Motion by Leon,
I'll second.
second by Susan. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? And any abstentions?
Me.
We have one abstaining and Ray. Great, moving into item 5 on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. We have minutes, warrants, leave of absence, retirements, resignations, and nominations. It's quite the list this month, due to the winter recess of the board, I think, mostly, but, or sorry, summer recess of the board. And so can we get a motion to accept the consent agenda? And if everybody's okay with keeping it together as opposed to breaking those out separately.
I'll make it.
Motion made by Ray, seconded by Leon. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay. Moving into item 6, superintendent's report.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all this evening. So I'm going to give you some SVSU updates in regards to things that were happening during the summer months. And our theme of the summer was slowing the pace to support good decision making. And this board is, again, we just went through the policy piece, and that was actually part of the work of the administrative team this summer. I want to thank Jeremy Neal, one of the associate principals at the high school, and Tony Lee, one of the associate principals at the middle school, Sarah Pickering, principal at Arlington Memorial High School, Donna Colley, principal of Monument Elementary, Don Campbell, one of our associate directors of special education, and Dr. Kate Abbott, our director of student support services, who came together this summer to look at some policies that were brought forward. Part of our work was around looking at some policy language that we're looking forward to bringing to the policy committee some on Monday, and some administrative regulations that we are trying to, we are now have a good team that's going to meet annually to make some updates. I'd also like to thank Ashley Walker, a nurse at Mount Anthony Union Middle School, and Lori DeStasio, a nurse from Arlington, who also have made some suggested updates. They are following state level trends linked to some of our policies that have a health focus, and annually provide us with updates to make sure we're current. We then, at our administrative retreat this summer, one of our 2 days was focused on policy. And we had 27 administrators present, and we spent time going through policies that were part of the policy committee's work last year and that require an annual read. We created some fun policy games to make it inviting and fun. But again, the focus was always to make sure that policies are guiding our work. And again, members of this team are looking forward to attending policy meetings to provide updates. So another happening that happens annually, and it does align with the policy, SVSU Policy 6000 curriculum. Part of that policy language is around organizing committees to cooperatively review and develop curriculum of the supervisory unit and to provide staff development and implement appropriate assessments. So this summer, we had 10 curriculum and professional support staff members meet during the summer to update curriculum, review assessments and primary resources, and we provided a professional learning experience around the importance of educational support teams. We had a total of 70 professional staff that participated in summer work this summer, and that was funded through ESSER grants. Summer recovery happened again. This was our third summer. We had 5 coordinators throughout the district. We want to thank Rachel Boisfert, who was the coordinator for Arlington, Andrew Labarge and Kristen Jeske, who were the coordinators for the SVU ESD, Kelly Brooks and Sharon Rancourt for MAU. The Abbey group reported that they served 37,000 meals district-wide this summer. 117 staff provided service this summer, and 350 students were served, which is almost 15% of the total student population. So this completes year 3 with one more year of funding supported through ESSER for summer recovery programming. And so a great suggestion we had at a previous board meeting. Our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, Melissa Senecal, is working with the coordinators to capture their work so that we can come back to the boards, especially during budget season, to make sure that we're keeping you aware of what the cost looks like and what the data looks like to support this work. And then finally, I wanted to give you an update, and I'm glad that Nick Galt is with us because he helped me prepare this section. We provided, now we offer a 2-day new teacher training. The feedback we received in prior years, 1 day wasn't enough, so now we offer 2. And we partner with the Human Resource Department to offer this event. So on August 9th and 10th, we were able to capture 32 initial professional hires. So it wasn't all of our hires because we were still hiring, but 32 attended the 2-day event, again, which had some learning experiences and then some fun activities. We also tried to, we had Mr. Payne here, the principal of the high school, who offered tours of the community. We tried to make it fun and engaging and introduce them to as many people as possible. As of today, we have 48 new SVSU hires, not including internal moves of current employees. Out of approximately 409 SVSU employee positions, 377 full-time and 32 part-time, we currently have 42 open SVSU positions. There continues to be SVSU vacancies primarily connected to paraprofessional roles and special education teaching positions. We currently are posting, we're looking everywhere. So as I'm talking here, if anyone is interested in working for the SVSU and becoming a paraprofessional or a special educator, we would be excited to meet you. So that is my report for today.
Just have one question with regard to the summer programming.
Sure.
You would be impressed by the 15% participation. Is that district-wide? Is that SU-wide? Or I guess where I'm going is Arlington and Sandgate?
I asked so our Director of Curriculum Instruction Assessment, Melissa Senecal, oversees the coordinators and the numbers. So I asked for these numbers and I'll clarify with her just to make sure, but that was my understanding that yes, this is SVSU-wide.
SVSU-wide. So
Correct.
there are similar programs that are happening in those buildings?
At that, yes. So again, we've gotten to a great system now. So we start meeting right after the winter break. And so Melissa Senecal pulls together whoever the coordinators are going to be, and they've come back. So again, each district, you could hear me say each district has representation. And then Melissa really works to fine tune what the offerings are. And this is still linked to the plan we submitted to the state 3 years ago. So we had to submit a plan for how we were going to use this money. So the good news about having this block of money is we've been able to refine as we go. And then I help to lead the group with our community partners. And we, again, as you said, have, so Deanne Lacoste, the principal of Fisher Elementary, sits with me to meet with the community partners. So we're really trying to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be a part of this process, because what we're trying to do is exactly what you suggested at a prior board meeting, is capture what we're doing so that we can reflect upon it and make good budget decisions moving forward when this money runs out.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, maybe. Oh, 37,000 meals?
That is what
How
Maureen,
many meals a day?
I could ask Maureen that. I can ask her the question, right?
Well, I don't know how many days were there.
So and actually, that's where things vary just slightly, and I would want to take your question back because there were a few days here and there based on the district, but I would love to, I'll bring your question back to Maureen O'Neill.
Breakfast and lunch, and
Yeah,
they start in
right.
June and they follow.
Yeah, but
into
how many
August.
participants were there? I'm just curious. It doesn't,
Sure.
it sounds high given the number of participants. But if you're doing breakfast and lunch, that doubles the daily total.
There were some camps, I think, that use those or.
I can find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are multiple sites. They're not just tied to the schools. I think there's like between 20 and 30 sites that serve meals throughout the summer.
Yeah, so it's I guess I'm not seeing the whole picture, so. The other thing was you mentioned assessments.
Correct.
The group worked on assessments. So what kinds of assessments?
Were the curriculum teams working on this summer?
Huh.
So we have standards that we teach to, and once we, every summer, the curriculum teams refer back to the standards to make sure that we're all in agreement that these are the prioritized standards that we teach to. And then the next step is to make sure, what are we going to use to measure? And so a lot of what the curriculum teams do is they're making local curriculum-based measures. So a great example would be, we have a new primary resource at the elementary level for math. And so part of the work for the math curriculum team this summer was looking through that new primary resource. Well, first, making sure we know the standard that we're teaching to, and then they're taking a deep dive into the resource to see what are some of the best assessments that we could use to measure to make sure a child has it, so we can make next steps. So during the summer, most of their time is spent on developing curriculum-based measures that are locally created by the teachers.
So would we hear some of the results of those assessments during the year?
So curriculum-based measures are often used. That's what a teacher's using to sometimes formative, sometimes summative. So they're using these assessments like to capture a day based on a lesson, and sometimes they're using them to measure big chunks of time. But I can take that back to Melissa Senecal and share that you had that question.
Question. So what's the standard? Is it based off of the state, or is it based off of the different SUs within the state of Vermont?
So in the state of Vermont, the state of Vermont adopts the standards that we're going to adhere to. So my example would be, because it's probably the two sets of standards that have been around the longest, the Common Core State Standards, which are familiar. So the state of Vermont adopted the Common Core State Standards. And then at the district level, what each district is responsible for doing is interpreting that through curriculum teams, which is what our policy is. So we're teaching to those standards, but we're taking a really deep dive to find out where do we want to put the weight of our instruction. And so that's what's wonderful about the curriculum teams, and that's, you bring a group of teachers together with some coaches and some administrators, and in partnership, they really hone in on what is the most important thing we want to make sure kids have. But the state of Vermont adopts the standards that we teach to. So every curriculum that we have for every subject area is attached to primarily national standards, which is great.
If you could pull that data and get a general, the sixth graders, across the district are performing at XYZ,
So that's-
sea level.
Yeah, so that's your, so you're talking, so those are
Global level.
big, yeah. And during the summer months though, assessment, as a classroom teacher, what's super important is we want to make sure that we have measures to use on a daily basis.
So I
And
know
that takes time.
the state puts out the global for the state,
Correct.
but we could break it down for global for how we're doing as districts across the board.
Correct. What you're talking about is a norm referenced assessment. And what happens in the summer months is more around developing in-house tools that teachers can use with their instruction on a more regular basis.
And since I've never seen a presentation about the normed assessments, and I generally think they're less useful.
So you want to so what I heard you say, Ray, is you'd like to learn more about what does the SVSU have for locally
Right.
Created curriculum
And how
assessments?
well
Yep.
students are doing on those.
Sure.
Because they should validate your curriculum
Yeah, that's correct. Yep. All right.
in reference to the standards.
Will we all will this be an email or is this gonna be another board meeting?
Well, that would be a discussion, so Ray's asking for a topic for a future meeting, which is, can we have some more information about locally created curriculum-based assessments? So I made a note.
But I do think getting a norm level for where kids are at is a good reference point too. That's a good starting point.
Well,
Gonna give you a lot of information.
there's a lot of issues with this test.
Just to answer, to clarify the question, and I think I saw something come from the superintendent. As a board, the only time we really should be doing things as a group is here, not emailing all this stuff around to anybody to have conversations going back and forth. So we would be in violation of the open meeting law. So we try to make sure that
Well,
what was being asked.
We're not talking about policies here,
No.
we're just talking about results, right?
I put it down as a topic for.
Well, you asked the topic to go on to agenda first, to be talked about, as opposed to sending all the results. to
But it's an
everybody.
informational topic, it's not, it could lead to policy decisions. But, I'm not sure I follow your reasoning.
Thank you for clarifying, but
That's all right.
I agree too.
It will be part of it'll be part of a future agenda.
Yep, got it.
So moving into, now Chair's report. What's that?
But I assume it would be shared beforehand. I would hope it would be shared beforehand so that
As
people
part of
can
the
see
packet.
this as part of a package, yes.
Yes. Moving into Chair's report, I don't have too much to report tonight, other than to say, heard from a number of folks around town after these first few days of school getting started. Seems to be a very overwhelmingly positive feeling and vibe coming from, I know how my kids are coming home, but then also standing at soccer games and hearing how administrators and staff and faculty who are in other buildings are feeling as well. So nice to have the year kicked off the way it has. I think a lot of the preparation that was done and that you referenced for over the summer for staff development, especially with the volume of new staff that are coming in, that's a huge undertaking to bring all those people in. And so thank you for all the great work there. One thing that Nicole and I are working on is we've reached out to Superintendent Cope Keen to review the 2023-24 school year goals that he has that were outlined in his last performance evaluation, to learn where we are with those, and then to learn how perhaps we as a board can either address or work on or help in reaching those goals, because I think if they're set up correctly, help in reaching those goals helps the district as a whole. And so that's something that we are going to be meeting with him on next week. And that's what I had for Chair's report. There's actually next on the agenda would be number 8, which is any other business.
Just wanted to remind everybody that there will be a SVSU policy meeting on the 11th at 4:30.
Any other about for those policy meetings?
Part of the conversations, we'll be meeting tomorrow morning to hash out all the things that could probably be getting on the agenda, but it would be planning those things for that meeting, and then probably what will be carried right on through at future meetings, I think, because there are a lot.
So with that review with the review of all the policies that happened as part of summer work, is there a potential volume of policies that are gonna be coming through?
So part of one thing that happened, that the Agency of Education, brought to our, every district's attention last year was, updates to we all were, provided with a template to update our handbooks, all school handbooks. And that brought up some great conversations across the board this summer. And so there are some policies that are to come forward as a result of the work that the agency required. We're not the only district that had, it was actually this is gonna be great because it's gonna bring some policies up that we haven't talked about in a while. And then, something that we've been working on with our administrative team is just the importance of policies and that wonderful tab on our website where they're all listed. And so we really took some time to go back because the policy committee really does a great job of attending to policies that people have brought forward or that need to be reviewed. And so we really made a commitment to having our administrative team review the policies that have been brought forward this past year. And then that also raised some ideas. Some of what you heard me say are some regular things that happen. So for example, health information is changing all the time. So they come every year. The nurses come every year with some updates, usually to administrative regulations. So I do think in a good way, there's some attention to the importance of this process. And so.
To answer your question, we're not going to overload anybody because the policy committee has to be able to process.
Sure.
Certain policies. That's why I said you have an agenda. We're going to meet tomorrow morning and talk about what we can probably manage in one day and then what we can manage out there in the future. But it was mentioned, the policies is one part of it, but we had asked that we try to sync the administrative regs and all of the other types of documents in line with them, what they've maybe not kept up with. And so that's what a lot of things that I was working on and with doing the summer and so forth along that line. And the administrative regs, all we would need to know is that, yes, they fit that portion of the policy and move on, because we won't be doing a whole lot of discussing on those items. But the policies will stand as the guidelines for everything, and we're going to manage that whole monthly.
Policy meetings to open to the public,
All meetings are open to the
so it's gonna
public.
be listed on the website if it's, I don't see it listed, right? So,
It hasn't been
I
warned
think
yet.
it's on the calendar, isn't it?
no, we have an ag meeting on Monday.
You had the ag meeting on,
Yeah, that's the only one that listed there, so.
But it hasn't been warned yet.
No, I think they're gonna build the agenda tomorrow, so the morning.
we're doing the tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Extra time.
But it's a standing meeting, right?
Yeah, ours is standard every month. We meet the
Second Monday.
second Monday of the month. And if we can meet like we couldn't meet in September because of September, we moved it to the 11th. But look at all the board members get to notice that policies are taking place. You can see them, and each one of them are going to trickle down. We have board members that are different boards that be representative so they can share that information and feedback so we can expedite the efforts at the board meetings.
Any other business?
Two things. Leon, can you please repeat the time for the meeting tomorrow?
That meeting tomorrow is for me
Oh, sorry.
With the
Okay. So
superintendent,
you're having the meeting on the 11th for the policy meeting?
tomorrow's meeting is a pre-meeting to determine what the agenda is going to be for the 9/11 meeting at
Meeting before the
4:30.
meeting. So it's what time on the 11th?
4:30
4:30.
PM.
4:30.
Okay, so the ag meeting is at 4 o'clock. So if you want to contribute to your meeting, how do you do that? If you
Well,
can't be in two places at one time.
I'm
Can I
not
give you
asking.
information? Can I
I'm
pass
not-
this information to you?
I'm not used, if the ag meeting is at 4 o'clock, our meeting is at 4:30. It's not required that the ag meeting people, individuals attend the policy meeting.
Right, but I have an
And-
interest in the policy meeting. So that's why I was interested in attending.
If you would like to have some input, you can.
Okay, so
Right,
can I
I think
deliver?
we're gonna be there from 4:30 to 6. It's an hour and a half. We try to.
Okay, so can I deliver the info to you or through someone else on the policy meeting?
Whatever you would like to send to me, my doors are open.
Great. The other
Anybody.
question I had was about the superintendent review committee. Did you say you were already having meetings about that?
No,
No.
Okay,
I said that we were addressing some things that were in the last evaluation that were stated as goals for the 2023, 2024 school year.
right. Okay, so but you haven't had a meeting yet.
That's correct.
Okay, great, thanks.
I have one point of information. Did I hear how many openings still left and how many new positions have been hired in the SBS? That's SVSU, not system-wide, or is it?
No, SVSU,
Yep,
40.
40,
48.
40.
8 new SVSU hires
Okay,
and 42 open positions.
so it's 99 positions that were open. 42 of them still left. And we have how many positions in the SU?
I have Nick on in case, so out of approximately 409 SVSU,
409, okay.
yes, positions.
So that's a
Quarter.
quarter. Really high.
8 now.
8th until.
But
If anyone's listening, we haven't posted.
It's a difficult job to continuously fill and maintain out there. It's just, and this is not just in this district, it's everywhere.
Huge number.
Any other business? Okay, I'd like to add an item to the agenda, if there's, which is the adjourn, to move to adjourn. It's not actually outlined on the agenda.
So move.
Second. Second by Susan. All those, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.